Good afternoon, everyone. This is I'm Kathy Neifeld with Agency One, and I would like to welcome you to a webinar that we are thrilled to be hosting on behalf of Pacific Life. And the webinar is about strategies to optimize your business, setting goals to increase your revenue, how to manage your time better to focus on profitable clients, and identifying the best clients to get more out of them. Our featured speaker today is Carlan Snipes, and she is the Field Vice President for the Broad Market Distribution at Pacific Life, covering the Southeast region. And she has over 30 years experience in the financial services industry, providing unbelievable expertise in expanding the sale of life insurance products. Carlan, I'm beyond delighted to tell you that Carlan is the Agency One go-to for everything that we need at Pacific Life, particularly in the Lynchburg channel. And when we have an issue, Carlan can get it done. She is a pleasure to work with, and she has been significantly recognized by the industry for her expertise. And Carlan, I'm just going to act like a really proud friend right now and talk about some of your recent accomplishments. She was awarded in both 2020 and 2022 the Pac Life Stanford Chairman's Award for top percent to goal for broad market. I said both in 2020 and 2022. And she was also nominated and received the ID20 award from NAILBA in 2022. Award winners are nominated by BGA customers for being an innovator, trailblazer, and a passionate, committed leader in the independent distribution space. So Carlan is definitely a go-to in terms of getting things done and moving forward with business and becoming more profitable in your business. This webinar is going to take about 30 minutes, a little bit more if there are any questions. If you have any questions, please type them in the Q&A, and we will try to address them as they come in. So on behalf of Agency One and BSMG and BUA, we're going to kick this webinar off with Carlan, and I'm going to turn it over to her right now. So Carlan, thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I look forward to talking with you guys and gals. So let's get started so we can optimize our time. Let me just get the presentation pulled up so you all can see everything. Great. So what we're going to talk about, obviously, Kathy mentioned, is strategies to optimize your business. And what you're going to see throughout this presentation is I actually love quotes. And this particular quote, I really, really love when it's in person, because what happens is sometimes people are afraid to ask questions. So I love this quote. So never fail to know if you're doing all the talking, you're boring somebody. I do not want to bore anybody. So you all please put questions in the chat box, and we'll address anything that you have around the products as we're going through this presentation today. So the introduction, what we're going to start with is just defining what that optimization goal is, what that looks like. And then we'll dive into some tools and strategies that you can apply to your business planning, time management, client management. And then lastly, we'll just wrap up with some next steps, and we'll talk about some things there as well. So again, another quote for you. Are you ready for change? The secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. And that was by Socrates. So what is business optimization? And the definition is the process of identifying and implementing new methods to make your business more efficient and cost effective. So why is that important to you and your business? Firstly, it boosts your profitability, it boosts your productivity, it reduces your costs, and it increases your profitability. All good things that you want to have happening in your business. So let's jump in and talk a little bit more about business optimization before we talk about the strategies I want to discuss with you today. Years ago, I was traveling and I saw this quote on a whiteboard, and it always stayed with me. The only time success comes before work is in the dictionary. What we're doing today is working on your business, not working in your business, finding ways to develop your business and increase your revenue. So this is the example of the efficient frontier of business optimization. And throughout the presentation today, this chart is going to pop up frequently. So you'll see it quite a bit. So revenue will be on the vertical, hours worked is going to be on the horizontal. And all of those black dots you see out there are other financial professionals just like you. And you can see some are working, longer hours, making more money. Some are working less hours, making less money. So they're all over the place about the revenue and the hours worked. In this example, what we're trying to get to is that efficient frontier, which is the curve, that black curve in the graph. And let's assume in this example that you're the blue dot, the circled blue dot there in this example. So one thing that we could look at is what could we do to actually maintain your current revenue, but reduce the number of hours that you worked. Maybe you want to spend more time with your family and do some different things and you need to free up some more time, but you don't want to reduce your revenue. So what could you do to reduce those hours at the same time while you're maintaining your current revenue? The second option is to consider is, well, maybe you have a great work-life balance. Your family knows you when you walk through the door. You don't have to prove who you are. You're not traveling crazily. What you really want to do is increase your revenue. So what if you could find tools and strategies that actually increase your revenue, but you maintain your current hours work that you have today? And the last example I'll talk to here, and I think this is the one everybody really wants to be at, is what we could do to optimize our business fully. We can optimize the revenue, we can optimize the time. So we're actually working less at the same time we're increasing our revenue. So what I want to share with you today is some tools that'll help you do that. So let's just jump right into business planning. So the first thing I want to start with is, do you currently have a vision statement for your business? And you might say, Carlan, what the heck is a vision statement? Maybe you haven't thought about it. So really, it's the what about your business. It's not the why. It's a guiding philosophy for your business. It's a blueprint of the final result of where you want to be, and make it aspirational. I'll bring up an example that I had from years ago, and I really like it. And I'm hoping you're going to know who this person is in one way or another. So I'm sure you've heard of Bruce Jenner. But what you think about is, what was he famous before years and years ago? He was famous because he was an Olympian athlete, right? He won gold. And following that, he did a lot of motivational speaking. He would go around the country meeting with amateur athletes, talking to them about ways they could become an Olympian. And at one of these meetings, he was having this conversation. He brought the question up. He asked the group, how many people here actually have a vision statement? And as you might assume, everybody in the room raised their hand because they all wanted to be Olympians. So that was their vision. That's what they wanted to be. So he did a follow-up question to the group, and he asked them, who here has it with you? And out of that entire group, one person raised their hand. And the person that raised their hand was Dan O'Brien, who went on to win Olympic gold in the decathlon, just like Bruce Jenner, in 1996. It's just to show you the power of writing these things down. And I was actually at a meeting a few months back, and a gentleman walked up to me and he said he'd been at a similar practice management session, and he pulled this crumpled piece of paper out of his pocket and he was showing me his vision statement. He said, Carlan, I went to a meeting like this, and ever since I wrote my vision statement down and I refer to it daily, I look at it, I think about it, my revenue has been steadily increasing because of this. And just that one simple thing helped him grow. The last thing I'll say here is, make sure if you do the vision statement, I think it's very powerful, but you need to share it with everyone. Make sure everyone knows what your vision statement is, because they will help hold you accountable to doing what you say you're going to do. Just think about it this way. If people go into, say, a weight loss program as an individual versus someone going into it with a partner, they're going to be more successful because they have someone holding them accountable to what they say they're going to do. So when you're setting that vision, what I want you to do is define and set goals to achieve it. Develop and map out a clear activity plan. What are you going to do to get there? And you need to invest time and money to execute on that plan to achieve it. So 3 things that successful producers, financial planners have in common. They have a business plan. So what are they doing? What are they focused on? They have a marketing plan. These are the tactics and the tools they're going to use to accomplish that business plan. And then lastly, they have a revenue goal. How much are they planning to make with that? And I apologize, my clocks are going to go off. They're a little bit off. Old clocks do that sometimes. But I think the easiest thing here for me is I kind of always end up starting with the revenue goal and working my way backwards. Because to me, that's the easier one to think about where you want to be. But you really need to get down nitty gritty and think about how you're going to get there. What are you going to do to achieve that goal? So business plan, designing that marketing plan is very similar to your client's goals for their retirement and their future. So when you're thinking about that, I usually use a 12-month scenario, a year scenario, and you can start it today, you can start it at the end of the year, however you want to start it for your business. But over the next 12 months, what am I trying to do? In this example, they're saying acquire X number of clients, and these are the ways I'm going to do that. How am I going to bring on these new clients? What am I going to be focused on? Maybe it's setting a number of appointments with a client on a weekly basis. Maybe you want to have, 10, 20, whatever that number is. How many appointments do you want to have on a weekly basis? And lastly, how many applications are you planning to get from those appointments? How many formals are you going to place because of those appointments? And the revenue goal, again, I think is the simplest one. I look at it this way. Last year I made X. This year, what's my goal? Where am I trying to be? Where am I going to be in the next 12 months? Now, I worked for GE years ago, and as a salesperson, I had to become green belt certified. And I don't know if you have any relation, that was very hard for me. It was like one of those things where it's like, I can't believe I'm taking the time to do it. But I'll tell you, the one thing that I thought was very important that came out of that green belt training was SMART goals. SMART goals will really help you be successful when you're setting goals for your business. Because what you want to do is apply SMART to those goals. First off, you want to make them specific, clear, and focused. Then you want to make sure that goal is measurable. You got to be able to measure it to make sure you're actually achieving what you say you're going to do. It needs to be able to monitor that goal. Attainable. You want to make sure it's a goal that you can actually achieve. You don't want to make a very unrealistic goal and get, discouraged because you're not achieving that goal. Make sure that goal is achievable. Relevant. Make sure the goal has a relationship to what you're trying to get to with your vision statement and your business planning. And lastly, it has to be timely. It has to have a beginning and an end. You can't just say, okay, I've got this goal to achieve, X amount in revenue and have no time frame around that, because you're never going to get there if you have no time frame around it. You need to make sure you have a set ending and beginning with that goal. All right, this is one of our first kind of examples, work study, think you want to think about for your business. And just don't get wrapped up in these numbers. These numbers could be anything. I'm using 100,000. That could be a million. 150 could be 1,500,000. So whatever works for your business. I'm just trying to put simple numbers in here, but don't get wrapped up in those numbers. So the revenue, whatever the revenue is of your business, and then down the cost, the bottom again is the hours worked. And that's in a 12-month period. So some things you think about with SMART goal setting. In the next 12 months, I want to increase my appointments to whatever that number might be. In the next 12 months, I want to increase my applications by. My revenue goal today is X, and then my revenue goal, tomorrow in the next 12 months is going to be Y. So in this example, what I want you to do for your business is plot out today where you're at. What number of hours are you working today on an annual basis? And in this example, we're assuming the black dot is you. You're working 2,500 hours annually. And today you're earning, let's assume in this example, it says 150, but let's assume it's 1,500,000. So where would I want to be in the next 12 months? What do I want to achieve? So the first goal might be you want to actually maintain your current hours worked and you want to increase your revenue. So going back to that business optimization goal, what you want to do is optimize your revenue. So you want to keep that at 2,500 hours worked, but by next year you want to be at $2 million in revenue. And then the next step from that could be that you want to actually, in the next 12 months after that, what your goal would be is, hey, Carlan, what I want to do is decrease my number of hours worked to 2,000 hours a year, but maintain my current revenue of 2 million. So it's just a really simple way to lay out where you are today and where you want to be. What's most important to you in your business? So when you think about the value of your time, I kind of laugh about this because I like a lot of people that work in sales don't necessarily take the time to think about really what an hour of your time is worth. And if you think about it this way, I always think about this. If I call a plumber today and said, hey, I need you to come out and look at something, could he quote me what an hour of his time is worth? Sure, he could. He could tell me right off the top of his head. And if I called a lawyer, I need to have a will drawn up or something like that, could he quote me an hour of his time? Yes. So what we do is no less important than what anybody else does out there. We really need to know what an hour of our time is worth because we want to make sure we're spending it wisely. Really simple example how to calculate that. Obviously, you take your revenue, divide it by the number of hours you're working to get to that hourly rate. But it's really important to know what that hourly rate is for you to make sure you're spending your time wisely. Something I like you to think about is determine your hourly value. You want to figure out what that benchmark is. Where do you want to be with that hour of time? Where do you want that number to be? So you write that down. You think about where you are today. What does an hour of your time generate today? And then where do you want to be? What's your revenue goal in the next 12 months? Where do you want to be? You want to make sure that hour of time. And again, the example here is assuming the 150,000. You can put the 1,500,000 in there and calculate it the same way to calculate what an hour of your time is worth today, where it would be if you increased your revenue to 2 million, and where it would be if you increased your revenue to 2 million at the same time decreasing your hours worked. So something to think about is your time is your greatest revenue producing asset. The better you manage and use your time, the greater your satisfaction, your revenue, your service, and your income. The middle line here I think is really, really important. Time spent on non-revenue producing activities is time and money lost. What we need to do is define what our revenue producing activities are and delegate everything else. And again, I mentioned this earlier, most financial professionals do not know the value of their time. They don't know what an hour of their time is worth. And I know you guys will know after you leave this meeting exactly what an hour of your time is worth. So let's jump into time management. Thomas Edison, of course, I had to pull a quote from Thomas Edison about time. Time is really the only capital that any human being has and the only thing he cannot afford to lose. So when you think about your business today and you think about what percentage of your time is spent on revenue producing activities, where would you put yourself? Would you say, Carlan, I'm spending less than 30% of my time focused on revenue producing activities? Or would I be between 30% and 60%? Or lastly, would I be greater than 60%? In this graph, we pull this information out. I really think this kind of jumps out. In this example, what you're looking at is there's only 10% of financial professionals out there today that spend over 60% of their time with clients. Because that really is what's going to generate revenue for you is spending time with clients. So over 60% of their time they're spending with client and they're earning 8 times the revenue of a similar financial professional who spends less than 30% of their time. So you really want to be focused in your business on spending time with clients. And again, getting rid of the other things that are pulling you down that you have to do, but find a better way to do it because you're the revenue generator for your business and you want to be focused on what generates revenue, which is spending time with clients. So 38% of financial professionals do not have enough time to spend with clients. And that's understandable. We have a lot of things going on, things we have to do. But what happens is clients do leave their financial professionals for some reasons. And one of them is 32% is quality of financial advice and services. But 30%, if you look at the two bottom there, quality of relationship with financial professionals and absence of quality communication. So in that 30%, they're feeling like they don't have the relationship with their financial advisor. So you want to make sure that your customers have that relationship with you because this is a relationship business and it's very important to have that relationship and make sure they're a valued client and they know they're a valued client to you. So, and maybe it's communications email, maybe it's communications mail, maybe it's spending time, maybe it's a Zoom call, whatever it is, spending time with those clients is extremely important to maintain that relationship. Here's another exercise, and you can drop this into an Excel sheet. I recommend doing this over a 2-week period to really define some activities maybe that you shouldn't be spending time on so you can refocus on the things that you should be. So in this example, we're assuming your day starts at 8 o'clock and your day wraps up at 6 o'clock. And what you're doing here is breaking your day up into half an hour increments. And in each increment, you're saying, was I with the client? Was I doing something in front of a client, either Zoom, email, phone call, in person, or was I not? So yes or no answer there. And then you're going to write down what were you doing. So in this example, at 8:30, I was on a phone interview with a client, potential client. Priority level, this would be a 1 because I want to be in front of clients, right? That's what generates revenue for my business. Another one is, yes, I was with the client. It was phone work. Maybe it was a customer service thing you were working for the client with. So it's still important you're spending time with client, but not as high of an opportunity from revenue because you're not going to get new revenue necessarily out of it. You could because it's important to maintain the relationships. A number 12 o'clock here in this example. Yes, I was with the client. I had an appointment. The things that I'm trying to define here are what are the things you're doing that don't involve a client. So in this example, 1:30 to 2, I was not with the client. I was doing case paperwork. So the priority level of this is not as high because you're not spending time with the client, right? So what we want you to think about is during your day, what things can you delegate to others to help you do versus you doing that so you can have more time to spend with your clients. So understand how and where you spend your time. You want to define the tasks that you do each day so you can identify. You might not even realize you're spending a certain amount of time on things that aren't necessarily generating the revenue for you. Just identify the best resources to fulfill the task because again, you can get wrapped up into something. It could be a huge time suck and it's taken away from you spending time with your clients. After you do that exercise, this is part 2 of the exercise. In this graph, we're looking at what brings value on the vertical, and then there's how much time it takes on the horizontal. So this is all about how can I free up my time? So after you've done that time tracking exercise we just looked at, what I want you to do is take the most specific activities you did, the top 8 to 20 that you did, and drop them into this grid. Because what you want to identify is what things you want to increase, what things you could potentially add or automate, what things you want to reduce, and maybe what things you want to outsource. So in this example, obviously what's important to your business, leads are extremely important. Strategic partnering, phone work. So these are the things that you want to increase because these things drive revenue. Things that you can automate, client meetings, maybe there's a different way to do that. And great example I have is policy review. I sat down with my financial advisor who doesn't live anywhere near me. We do a policy review over the phone. It takes 20 minutes. Most clients don't need a huge in-depth policy review. Some do, but don't think it's going to be a huge time thing to do a policy review. It's a great way to touch base and stay in contact with your customers. Interviews, is there a way to shorten that or automate that? Obviously, e-applications are a huge thing to help you. Things you want to consider outsourcing. Appointment setting, someone else can do that for you. Lead management, and things you want to think about reducing. Follow up on pending cases. Is there someone else in your office? Maybe it's a case manager that can help you with that. And paperwork. So the art and science of time. So what you're thinking about is how much time do you currently have available per year? So when you think about your business, how much time are you taking off? How many weeks per year do you tend to work? Appointments, how many per week do you want to have scheduled? Customers, what's your actual annual capacity? How many customers can you handle? And then existing customers, how much time do you currently spend with those customers? So I really like this example. If you don't do any of the other ones, this is a really cool one to think about doing. So this is the time bank analysis. So what we're thinking about here is time is finite. We want to identify where and how we spend our time. And obviously this is about maximizing your time with your customers, customer capacity. So you start off with number one, what's the total number of weeks worked per year? In this example, we've used 45. It might be different for you, but 45, maybe you're taking 2 to 3 weeks off. You've got holidays out there, federal holidays built into there. So whatever works for you. But in this example, we're assuming I'm going to work 45 weeks a year. Number two, total number of appointments per week. So how many times do I want to have an appointment on a weekly basis? I'm saying 10. I want to have 10 appointments per week, excuse me. And then what you're going to come to is the total number of appointments per year. So if you're working 45 weeks and you're doing 10 appointments per week, you're going to have 450 appointments. Now, how many times do you want to make sure you're in contact or reaching out to your customers? So customer touches per year. In this example, we're assuming twice a year. It might be 4 times a year for you. It might be more. So whatever works for you. So we're assuming twice a year. So 2 into 450 gets you your total customer capacity per year of 225. So how many existing clients do you currently have? In this example, we're assuming I have 100 clients today. So my capacity is 225. I have 100. So my total new customer capacity is 125. So what is my monthly capacity? Obviously, you just divide 12 into 125. I can handle 10 new customers a year based on this time bank analysis. So the last thing we want to talk about is client management. This is my favorite one right here. If you haven't done it, I highly recommend you do it and do it frequently. Things change. So who here has ever heard of Pareto's principle? And I'm sure you all have heard of Pareto's principle. Just a little trivia. Pareto was an Italian economist way back, I think in the 1800s, that he was actually studying land ownership in Italy, obviously. And what he found out was 80% of the land was owned by 20% of the population. And this led him to do other studies. He was like a gardener. He did herbs and stuff, and he grew herbs in his backyard. And so what he found was 20% of his plants generated 80% of the vegetation. And he went on to look at other things. But you'll know this for yourself, because if you go to your closet and you look at your wardrobe, you wear 20% of your wardrobe 80% of the time. So now's a good time to clean out the closet and go to Goodwill. That's what my husband said when I told him this. The other thing that's true about Pareto's principle is that your animal, so your dog, plays with the same toys, 20% of his toys, 80% of the time. So this is like what I would call a golden rule. So when you're thinking about your business, what you want to know is, who are those 20% of your clients that are generating 80% of your business? That's one thing, but the reverse is also true. Who are the 80% of your clients that are only generating 20% of the revenue? Because you want to know how much time you're spending with those folks as well. So in this example, again, we're back on the revenue on the vertical and the hours worked on the horizontal. And this is assuming a book of business of 200 customers. We ran an 80-20 on it. And what you're seeing here is the green dots at the top are the 20% that generate 80% of the production or the revenue for this business. So on average, when you do a 240 clients will generate 80% of the revenue. And you definitely want to know who those 40 clients are. And the reverse of it, on average, 120 clients will generate 10% or less of the revenue. And what I want you to look at the bottom, those red dots down there at the bottom, that one that's far way over there, that person is utilizing a lot of your time and not generating a heck of a lot of revenue. And I will tell you this, I have an engineer for a father. So right there, if you ever work with an engineer, you know how much time you're going to spend with an engineer explaining everything about a policy. It doesn't mean they can't generate revenue, but they're going to be very, very analytical and ask you a lot of questions. It's very important to know who your top customers are, but it's also extremely important to know who right now is taking away from your business and time. Who's taking that time away that you could be spending with your top producing clients? And I really like this. So frequently, the top 7 to 10 will generate more revenue than the entire bottom 120 clients in this example. So you definitely want to put a name to every one of those clients. So we're going to take the same book of business and drop it into this 4-quadrant review. We're going to segment these clients out. So firstly, those guys right there, those guys and gals are the large premium. They're a delegator. They're not necessarily going to ask you a heck of a lot of questions, but they generate a lot of premium. So they're easy to work with. Doesn't take a lot of time, but they generate a lot of revenue for your business. Typically, your top customers are going to have larger premium, obviously, multiple policies, business owners, more complex situations. The bottom left there, you're going to look at your clients. Maybe you're not having to spend a lot of time with them. They're not generating a lot of revenue. They're remote selling. Maybe they were referrals. They're delegators as well. So they're not time intense for your business. And then this last group, this very demanding, typically, as I said, high education, like an engineer, someone down there who's going to ask you a lot of questions, going to make you spend a lot of time with them. I know when I first went to set up some things with my financial advisor, I was ready day one to go forward. My husband, it took 5 different visits. So it depends on the person and what they need. They're going to take more time, but you need to know who those folks are and what's going to cost you. So what we want to talk about in this last section is ways to replicate those top large premium delegators. Don't take a lot of your time, but generate a lot of business for you. Also, we want to find ways to leverage and maximize our top customers. How can we do more with those customers? On the bottom left there, we want to find ways to develop, because maybe these clients that are in that lower quadrant there, that you don't have to spend a lot of time with them, if they're not generating the revenue, maybe they've drifted down over time. You had good first year commissions, and then over time they've drifted down. So maybe there's ways to develop and build referrals out of those folks. And that 4th quadrant, you need to find a better way to work with these folks. Maybe there's a way to delegate them out or outsource them, because you are spending a lot of time with them that you could free up to spend with your top customers to generate more revenue. So maybe, again, there's got to be a better way to work with those folks. So as I mentioned, we're going to focus this last section on ways to replicate these top customers. And I've said this earlier, we're in a relationship business. What we need to be focused on is increasing our time with clients. Definitely do that 80-20, because you want to make sure you're spending the time with your best clients. This is an interesting one. When I do it in person, I ask the group to write down their top 10 clients and then write down what their interests are. And a lot of times I'll be with financial professionals. They can get through 1 through 5, 1 through 6 pretty quickly. But 7 and 8, they'll have to think about, and they might not remember, they might not get to 9 and 10. If you run the 80-20 on your business, you'll always know who your top customers are. And what I'm doing here is what you're looking for in your top customers, what their interests are, what their commonalities are, what do they look like, what do they share. So when you're thinking about setting up maybe events with your clients, you want to have events that are interesting to all your top customers as much as possible. So you're looking for things, maybe they're big, wine aficionados or cigars, golf, whatever it is, what commonalities do they share? So some ideas you can think about, and I've actually done this with my customers. We did a wine tasting. Is a great way, an inexpensive way to get your clients together. You can go out to a nice vineyard. I'm in Virginia. We have a lot of vineyards around. I'm sure you have a lot of vineyards where you are as well. Take them out to a nice wine tasting. Golf outing is a great one as well. Maybe you take your top customer and ask them to invite 2 of their friends. And why do I say 2 of their friends? Who do our friends look like? Our friends typically look like us. So you want to get to know your top clients' friends as well. Art gallery event. I did this a couple years ago in Richmond, and it was great. We did an art gallery tour, and then we did a wine tasting at the end of it. And the other one to think about, the bottom one here, jewelry or fashion show. Don't leave out the spouse of your top customers. You definitely want to have a relationship with both parties in the couple. So maybe you do a jewelry, maybe you have a private event at a local jewelry store, or it's a fashion show. But make sure you also have a relationship with both members of the couple. When you're thinking about doing these events, you want to make them small groups. You don't want them to have, I've had a guy came to me, he said after this meeting, he used to invite every single one of his customers to a huge meeting at the end of the year. And he decided, you know what, you've saved me a lot of money, Carla, because I'm going to really focus on my top customers because I don't need to be doing this meeting for every single one of my customers. So make it small for that reason, but also make it small so that you can really develop a deeper relationship with those customers. You can spend more time with them. Do not make it a product pitch. It's an event about your customers. Don't make it about product at all. Don't, and if they ask you something, obviously you can answer the question, but don't make it about product. Make it focused on their interest. And again, bring a friend. Bring a friend is a huge opportunity for you because, again, who do our friends look like? So next step to think about with your business is develop that vision statement if you don't already have that, and set smart goals around that. Make it specific, make it measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely to that vision. And pick one of these strategies we've talked about and just track it over the next 21 days. Because what happens if you do something for 21 days, it typically becomes a habit for you. And then you can go on and pick another one. If you've never done the 80/20, that's the one that I suggest. If you've done that and you're good there, think about the time bank analysis to make sure you know what your customer capacity is. And obviously leverage Agency One. They're here to help you grow. They'll help you in all the things. We talked about case management issues. They can help you with some of those paper things maybe you're focused on that you can spend more time in front of your clients. So I really appreciate you all taking the time today with Agency One and myself, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you, Carlan. As I was listening to your presentation, it all comes down to holding yourself accountable. And it applies to so many areas of our life, whether it be going to the gym, changing our eating habits, becoming more social. It just, sometimes our biggest obstacle is ourselves.
Yes.
And there are so many tools out there. And, what I do know is that if I continue to do things the same way as I've done historically and expect a different result, I think that's like the definition of insanity. Sometimes you just have to look at things from a fresh perspective. We do
Well,
have
I
a
think too, we
question.
get out of habits. We've probably done these things in the past, and it's easy. You get into the business and you're working hard. You get away from the things. It's just trying to reset, a mind reset to go back and think about some things you want to reintroduce into your business again.
Absolutely. We were just asked if we're going to share the slides, and we will absolutely have the slides available. And as I said, this is being recorded. It will be on the website. This is I think it's a great reminder and a phenomenal tutorial about how to reset your business, how to refocus what you would like to achieve. And this applies across the board. This applies to Agency One. This applies to your kids in school and the results that they get and where they're spending their time and, in terms of time management. And I think there are tools that you certainly talked about that can be used with different family members and it works. The hardest thing is to hold yourself accountable.
Let other people know what you're trying to do because they will help you hold yourself accountable for sure. They'll hold you
Uh,
accountable for
but
what you
as
say you're going to
but as soon as you put it out there, Carlin, then someone is going to hold you to it.
do.
So,
Exactly.
find that friend. And I so one of the traps that we often fall into is not knowing when to let go. I know that person is going to come around. I know that that case is going to materialize and more, and we keep spending more and more time. And sometimes if we look back and think how many of those people actually did take our recommendations or advice, or versus how many did not, and we just weren't willing to let go and move on. Again, if you were writing it down and looking at it from what is my time worth perspective, it becomes extremely informative.
Definitely. At the time worth to me, I think our time is worth, you just need to know because you want to make sure you're spending it in the right things.
Absolutely. Well, I don't see any additional questions. Carlan, as I said, Carlan is terrific. She is one of our best externals, and I don't say that lightly, as the folks on that have dialed in recognize. So if you need anything uh, from Pacific Life, have any questions, or if there's any way that Agency One can help you meet your goals for year ends and help put into motion the things that Carlan has talked about, please reach out to us. We've got a number of webinars coming up through between now and the end of the year. I'm going to turn this over to Danielle, who's going to talk about what we have in the near future, and hopefully you will register for what's coming next.
Hi there. Thank you, Kathy. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much again for joining us for this webinar with Carlin. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Danielle Nedork David, Marketing Assistant at Agency One, filling in for Lisa today, and I just want to let everyone know about the two webinars that we have scheduled for the remainder of September. So our next webinar is on September 25th, and it is part 5 of the John Hancock Business Owner Solutions System webinar series. This part of the series will be focusing on guaranteed issue solutions for key executives. Then on September 30th, we have a webinar session with Commonwealth Capital Brokerage, also known as CCB, on current trends and a market update on the benefits of the ever-evolving life settlement market. We'll be sending out another webinar invitation email early next week with registration information for each of the sessions, as well as a list of recordings from our previous webinars. And those will also include a recording of today's session. So please keep an eye out in your emails for that invitation. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Again, thank you, Carlan. Thank you to our attendees. Again, if anyone at Agency One can be of service in terms of helping you with your cases, questions, case design, advanced markets, underwriting, please reach out to us. We are coming on fourth quarter, and we are eager to help you meet your revenue goals for 2025. With that, I'm going to conclude the seminar, and thank you for your time and attention. Again, Carlan, thank you very much.
Thank
This was
you.
terrific. Take care.
Bye.